Hello, today I would like to show you how to implement a planning scenario in Analytics Designer. With SAP Analytics Cloud, you can create stories that implement planning scenario. The central widget used for planning is a table, and thanks to the graphical interface, we can trigger several types of actions such as plan a budget increase, create a private or public version, or publish data. With Analytic Designer, we can implement the same planning scenario, but we can go even further by customizing the workflow thanks to the APIs of Analytic Designer. In fact, you will be able to create guided applications that will help your planners in their daily life. Contrary to a story, we will be able to trigger planning action outside the table widget. This is what we will see today. I have created for you a very simple application. The goal of this application is to evaluate the impact of a 10% increase in gross sales for the overseas region. So basically, it is a what-if scenario. Before I run the scenario, I would like to briefly describe you the application. So first, you have this table widget where you have the operating income of a company with the details like the gross profit or operating expenses. And for this table, you have the actual version, which is displayed. And this is for the Q2 quarter of 2017. On the right of this table, you have also the list of the available versions which are in the operating income plan model. And on top of that, you have a few buttons that we will use later to first create a private version, add the region in the table and filter on the gross sale. And finally, we will plan our data and publish the result as a version, a public version. Before I run my scenario, I would like to show you how I retrieve this different version here. So let me switch to the edit mode of the application. And if I go on the initialization event here, you can see how it works. So basically what I did is on the table widget, I retrieved the data source. And on the data source, I retrieve the get members. And to do that, I pass the dimension version here. And then by doing so, I get some an array of member info. And I just iterate over this array in order to basically here populate my checkbox group here. And in the console, I just log the ID of the value and the description of the value. So if I come back here and I just go here and do an inspect feature of Chrome in the console, you can see that I have my two version here, so the public.forecast version and the actual version. So now let's run the what if scenario. First, I will create a private version. So I just click on this button. And as you can see, the version has been created and is displayed here. So and the version is called private_forecast_10. If I refresh this, I see also the new version display in this list. If I switch to the edit mode and for this button, I just edit the script here, I can see how it works. So what I did is from the table, I use the getPlanning method to retrieve the planning object of my table. And on this object, I use this getPublic version where I pass the name of the actual version, and which gave me a planning public version object. And on this planning public version object, I just use the copy method. And for this copy method, I give a name for the private version, which is private_forecast10. I specify the planning copy option. In my case, I decided to copy all data. And finally, I decide which version category I want. In my case, I use the forecast category. So if I come back to my runtime application, I can see that I have two versions for the moment display. So let me display only one, the private version. So I select it and click on OK. So now what I want to do is I want to filter on gross sale and also for the entity overseas. So let me first add the entity dimension here and then filter on gross sales. And you can see for the gross sales account, I have the two region, United States and overseas. If I switch back to the edit mode, let's see how it works. So on my add entity button, I can edit the script. What I use is basically on the table, I use the add dimension to row. And here I selected the up_region dimension. So if you click here and you just select control space, then you have all the dimensions available. In my case, I choose this one. And then for the filter, the way I did it is basically I use a get data source from the table and I use a set dimension filter. And this method is waiting for two parameters, a dimension on which I want to filter and the member which I want to filter on. So for the dimension, again, you type control space and you have all the dimension. In my case, I use the account dimension, which is a measure dimension. And for the member, again, control space. And here you can use the open member selector. In my case, it was in finance, operating income, in the gross profit, in net revenue, in gross revenue, and here you have the gross sale, and you can see the ID of my gross sale. This is the one that I use here. Now let me increase my gross sale by 10% and see how it affects the overseas. Before doing that, I can first just log this cell, the United States cell, and then I can type my plus 10% here and click on plan data. So my data are updated and I can see the result of an increase of 10% here. And now let's switch back to my application to see how it works. So this is basically the plan data code associated here. So what I need to do is basically I need to use the set user input API on the planning object of a table. And in this method, I need to pass two parameters, the selected data and the value. For the selected data, I need to get the selection. How I did that is basically if I just open my inspect editor in Chrome and I go to the console here. So I just clear my screen here. Okay, so if I click on the enterprise here, cell, I have basically this is the selection which I need to pass to my method. So this is what I pass here basically, and I declare my selection. And the second thing is the value is basically the value I get from the input field, the plus 10%. And so I use this set user input with these two parameters. And finally, to make the change real, I need to use the submit data method on the table planning objects. Finally, I need to publish my private version as a public version. So I click on this button and I can see my version has been successfully published. If I refresh my list, I can see the new version, the public version called public_forecast version. I select it and click on OK. And it is displayed here. So how does it work? Here, if I come back to my application, There I'm going for this button. I just edit the script. What I did is basically I get the private version and I passed the name of my private version, and I use the publish as method, which expect two parameters. So the version name, which for which I use public underscore forecast 10, and the planning category, and for me it's a forecast category, so I pass this basically category. And that's it for today. In conclusion, we have seen how to use the Analytic Designer APIs to trigger certain planning actions and create a guided navigation within an application. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.